The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the Kid Constitution joined by the hosts of the Friends in Recovery podcast, Joseph Bemister.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to Young American. I'm your host, Joseph Bemister. We are live from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Find us on iHeartRadio, Podbeam, the podcast app from Apple, and YouTube Live. This podcast is fully fact-based, and we share our opinions, whether it be from the left or right. Our guests, thank you guys for coming on today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about today all 50 states carry, how that would benefit, in my opinion, and their opinion, if it would or wouldn't benefit. The police, how they handle situations with firearms around the world versus the United States. And would it benefit the American people for passing laws restricting firearms or protecting firearms? So we'll hop into the all 50 states constitutional carry. Here in New Hampshire, where we are, we're not even 5 miles away from the border of Massachusetts. And they are very liberal with their gun laws. If you pass in with a firearm and you don't have your firearm identification card, carry permit, and if your magazine is more than 10 rounds, you're in jail for a long time.
Automatically, correct?
Yep. And you were a police officer in Lowell for a little while.
I was 35 years. And
That's all?
yeah, just over half my life. But I had been in the military, too, for 3 years, and that's what I really learned about firearms. I grew up, in the city, and I really never did much hunting or shooting or anything. But when you go in the Army, naturally, they teach you how to shoot. And, I got an affection and a love for firearms. I really liked it, and then becoming a cop. But I've never been, owning multiple guns. I have a few now, but my belief, especially in the Second Amendment, is that we should all be allowed to. If you have a clean record and you want to protect yourself, because there's a lot of bad things that happen out there.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people understand there are some real evil, bad people. Right now, Massachusetts is going on. Governor Charles Baker, he had run on the premise that he was going to endorse and probably try to get the death penalty back in the state, which is going to be very difficult. Mass is a very liberal state, but for cop killers, and in the last several months, two Massachusetts cops have been assassinated, killed by very bad people that should have been in jail, and all of a sudden there's crickets. The governor's not talking about it. The political horse manure that goes with trying to get a bill like that passed is just beyond belief. Because I'd like to take a man like him or somebody that's very liberal, put them in a police car, and send them on a call like that officer went on to serve a warrant.
In Yarmouth, yeah.
Exactly. And then the results are devastating. They're horrible.
Yeah.
And, that happens a lot. And especially since Ferguson, Missouri, what happened out there with the last administration, Michael Brown, it's been open season in cops since then. 266 shootings. It's despicable.
It's ridiculous. I believe we're trying to get the hate crime for killing anybody who's a police officer.
Right.
We went over that in my law class. What do we think? Should a hate crime be an extra charge, or should there be no hate crime because people who commit hate crimes, they already know they're committing something extremely bad. Like murder, you murder somebody, color of their skin regardless, you're still going to jail for an extremely long time.
Correct.
I don't really have an opinion on that yet. That's actually what we're working on in class now.
Right.
For certain circumstances, I believe there should be, but for most of the time, if everybody gets the same penalty for what they do.
Right. Well, I think the battle and the rallying cry from the other side, the liberal side, people that are opposed to the death penalty, they're going to have all their stats and tell you that innocent people will be put to death, and would rather save one innocent life than and let these other people go to jail. The millions and millions of dollars they spend to house somebody who's a hardened criminal that's committed murder is just beyond belief. And it's to me, if it's an open and shut case, and you have all the, especially nowadays with DNA and cameras everywhere. I mean, it's a lot different world we live in today.
Yeah.
There was two gentlemen down in Connecticut several years ago. They killed the mother and a daughter. They lit them on fire. The father was a doctor. Somehow he got out of the house. And these two guys were sentenced to death. And then they appealed it, and they get rid of the death penalty in Connecticut, and they're on death row. Well, they're not even on death row now. They're going to live the time out in jail. I worked at a jail. These guys are considered not so much them because of the people they killed, but you kill a cop, you're a hero. You go to jail, you're going to be looked at as like somebody that people want to be like. You'll be like a hero. You'll be treated like a hero. It's despicable. It's awful.
Well, guys, I'm not much of. I don't carry guns. I don't have guns. I don't own them. I would like to, but I just was never my thing. But, I think if we even look back at the Bible, not to get religious here, but an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. One thing that baffles me is that you have all these people sitting in jail. You know that they killed them. They know that they killed these people. But us as taxpayers are paying them to eat and breathe and live when they killed a cop. Not even a cop. I mean, even just a random crime. Mike and I deal with a lot of people with drugs, and there was just an incident in my town, a couple of towns over in Pennsylvania, where the guy went into the house. I guess it was a robbery, and he shot the husband and wife and killed them. I mean, he admitted to it. Why don't they just off him? I mean, why don't they just kill him? There's no reason for that man to live, And again, it goes back to the Bible: an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. That I believe, anyway.
Well, later on in the book, Jesus talks about the 7 times 70. How many times should I turn the other cheek?
Yes.
And the answer was 7 times 70. So you have both sides of the same coin in the Bible, where on the Old Testament they're talking about eye for an eye, but in the New Testament it's you got to love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And that is a real struggle in this country.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, we don't. This is a world of craziness. We were just talking about it. Everybody's extreme left or extreme right. There's nobody in between anymore. And, we need some people with some good thinking that are going to say, listen, you kill somebody, you're going to jail, and you're probably going to die for it if you kill somebody, But the other thing is, too, I wouldn't want to be on that jury, taking somebody's life either. I guess that's the other part of it, too, Right. I don't know if that,
Well, it's a difficult subject, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, if you kill anybody, obviously, unless you plead insanity or there was a good reason for it, there's actually a term I learned in school in the law class. When you kill somebody justly, they put that under as a misdemeanor homicide or non-criminal homicide, I believe it's called in New Hampshire, and it's just. I think that's the only time you should be able to someone who you put your life in your hands, and either you took them on accident, whether it be like a wrongful death, that's the only time you shouldn't be punished for it.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely.
Sure, the other side of the coin is this. I can remember working on the main desk, and there was a call that went out about a shooting. It was 4:30 in the afternoon, nice day like today. And what happened was these two boys that got out of school, they were 13 and 12, and they went back to one of the boys' houses, and the grandfather was living there, and he had a .357 Magnum in a drawer, and they took it out and they looked at it, and the boy who was visiting ends up getting shot in the chest. The other boy, unbeknownst to him, there was a round in the chamber, and he shot him and killed him. And I mean, a .357 is a very powerful handgun.
Oh yeah.
I mean, a .22 bullet could kill you as well. But it was a devastating, death. And the police that had to go there, you got two young kids. If you have kids of your own, it was a horrible, horrible. Incident, and it wasn't considered a crime because of their age, and that's what you're talking about, I'm pretty sure. But I just remember, that affected me, and I didn't even see it. I just heard about it, So there is, I do understand the other side of the other side of the aisle, what their concerns are. But I think to get people that are just thugs and murderers, you got to enforce, and you have to make stronger gun laws. And I'm not talking about for law-abiding people that would affect the Second Amendment. I'm talking about criminals. Yeah. Because in Massachusetts, it's a liberal state, and if you get sentenced to life in prison, doesn't mean you're going to be there. There was a cop named John McGuire, Woburn police officer. I went to the police academy with him in Topsfield, 1980. Wonderful, wonderful man. Wonderful man. 2.5 months before his retirement, right after Christmas, Burlington Mall, our jewelry store was robbed. He gets there, and guess what? I'm sorry, it was a Woburn store. And he gets shot by a gentleman who had been sentenced to life in prison and was out. All right, I think he did like 17 years, and he was shot to death by him. Again, Massachusetts is an extremely liberal state, and I think truth in sentencing, to me, would be you get life in prison, you're in prison for life. No appeals. It doesn't matter how good you are. You found God. You got a master's degree in you know.
Yeah, but you put all the lawyers out of business, Mike.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
That's part of it, you know. That's definitely part of it. The money, too, the lawyers and all that, and you know.
I admire, excuse me, Joe. I admire youth because of your knowledge. Number one, I mean, you are a young man, but you're extremely gifted, knowledgeable, passionate young man. We just don't meet people like you, and every day. And I think we'd all agree. Most of the adults in this room would agree with that, you know. And what got you involved in this? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Honestly, it was just, you know, putting my opinion on Facebook, and, you know, my mom and dad were always like, don't put that on there, don't put that on there, I want people seeing it. And then, you know, Mr. J came out of nowhere and was like, hey, you know, I like your opinion. And from there, he talked to my mother about doing a podcast, and then she asked me if I wanted to, and I talked to Mr. J about it. And then right after that, I was like, I really want to get into this.
Were you surprised how many people like your opinion?
Yes.
Right.
I think it's a silent majority that agrees with a lot of Joe's beliefs, because he bases his stuff in common sense, and he does do the research. It's not like he's flying off the handle and just forming opinions out of nowhere. He's forming opinions based on what he reads. Now, right or wrong, in the end, time will tell, right? But right or wrong, he's doing the very best he can with what he has right now, and I commend him for that as well.
Yeah, but he's very well educated. It's not like
he educates himself on it.
I know, it's amazing. We sit here and after after our show, he comes right on, and I'm just amazed at what he knows about all this. And I just sit here, and when he asked me to come on today, I'm like, I'll just be the pretty face today for you, but but it's just amazing. And I do sit here. And Mike and I watch the show every week.
Yeah, we don't leave. We don't, because it's so interesting. And, you know, I just think it's, you know, there's the millennials, and everyone's talking about the millennials, and, you know, they're snowflakes, and they live at home, and, you know, they're never going to leave, and, you know, they're self-centered. They don't want to have children. They don't want to get married. It's all about them. And, you know, I think some of it, you know, might be a little blown out of proportion. But I don't know what we'd call Joe. I mean, he's not a millennial. No. So I really believe this next group of young adults coming up right now, past, you know, behind the millennials, whatever label they put on them, I really think we're going to see more conservative young adults, in spite of the 90 or 80% of most colleges, especially in Massachusetts. I'd say 85% are extremely liberal. You can't even have a conservative view. They'll drum you out of there.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, exactly. It's horrible. It really is. And so I think this next generation is going to be more conservative. And I'm not saying Trump conservative. I'm just saying more conservative, more understanding of what society really wants. They don't want, I don't think they want to see people that have murdered someone go to jail for 15 years. They found God. They got an education. Let's let them out. Let's let them
Absolutely
out and
not.
give them another shot, another bite of the apple.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys, you know, coming and staying with the podcast. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you know, back to the jail system. It's supposed to be about, you know, rehabilitation. We're supposed to go there and teach the criminals how to be productive members of society, and I don't think we see that anymore.
No,
I don't think we do. I mean, the prison system, you know, you should be teaching these people on how to be, you know, better people. And in Brentwood, the jail in New Hampshire, when you go for, you know, a year or two, they send you to work. Although they give you like an ankle monitor and you go back and forth. And I've, you know, there's people I've talked to who've been in that program, and they liked it, and they've learned skills. After that, they've gone from the same job they had in jail to when they're, you know, free men again. They worked that same job, the same time, the same hours, and they were productive about it. And I think, you know, teaching as much as, you know, on my side, it should be, you know, punish them.
Right.
It doesn't help.
Between podcasts, actually, Ed, you had brought up a point of when it comes to recovery that people, or maybe it was Richie that brought it up, when it comes to recovery, some of the people that are entering recovery are looking for that easy out. They're looking for that shot that's going to cure them. And your expression on your podcast is that time takes time, right?
Yeah.
So rehabilitation takes time as well.
Oh,
It's another way of shifting your thinking and converting yourself into a new way of thinking. And the generation, the people that are in prison now, I believe, are looking for that quick fix. Oh, I found God, and now I get a complete recovery, and I'm all set, and I can come out. But you know what? When you come out and you have a record, you're going to have a hard time finding a job, and that's something you've got to prepare yourself for mentally. You've got to know that going in.
Absolutely.
That it's going to be tough, and maybe you don't make the bad choices. Maybe you don't hang out with the wrong people.
Yeah, but you
right away.
You have to work with what you're dealt with. You made your bed. You have to lie in it. So you have to work around those perimeters. But you know, a lot of the people, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, and you too, Joe. A lot of people that are in jail are because of drugs and because of you know, bad poor decisions that they made because they wanted to get drugs. The other portion of them are mental health people. And I don't think the mental health people are you can I don't think they can get cured, or I don't think there's a fix for them. You know, anybody who walks into a room, let's say down in Florida, and shoots all those people, and they know they plan to do all that nightclub down in Florida, you know, he had some kind of, I don't know what kind of gun he had. You guys probably know, but that's not a fixable problem, I don't think. You know, I think that's a problem. That man needs to be killed. Well, he killed himself, or they killed him. But, you know, that's somebody who needs to stay in jail. People like you were talking about, people with drug problems, and maybe they knocked off a bank or beat some old lady over the head or something. Those people, yeah. Can you rehabilitate them? Yeah. But, yeah, they walk out of that jail, they can have a felony. They're not going to get a job like they wanted when they decided to, you know, do that crime. That, you know, as far as that goes, that's, you know, kind of how I see it. But, you know, everybody does need a second chance. But if you're going in there and planning on something willingly, knowing that you're going to take people's lives, you don't get a fucking second chance in my book. It's zero. You know, maybe there's a bar fight or something, and somebody hits somebody the wrong way and kills them.
They fell over, they hit her head. You know, that's one thing. That's a wrongful death.
Exactly.
Or, you know, felony homicide, I believe it's called, when, you know, you're in a fight, or, you know, because of that felony. Is that correct? Absolutely. It's called felony homicide when you're doing a felony or your robbery, and then somebody ends up dying because of your action. It's felony homicide. It's a little less than first and second degree murder, but it's still up there. And, you know, police officers nowadays, they're so held back by the new policies that everybody's creating and how they deal with things. I mean, if you won't get out of a car and I'm a police officer, I'm going to beat the living shit out of you until you get out of that car, because I don't know if you have a gun, I don't know if you have a knife, whatever's in that car, whatever you can grab, it's free reign.
Especially if you're someone's grandmother.
Exactly.
No, but, you know, that's a very good point. And you'll watch these news medias, the liberal news medias, they'll have a police shooting of somebody, and of course they'll play it over and over again. But what they've found out in some of these shootings is they're not showing you the whole. You know, they're showing you what they want to show you. Ferguson, Missouri is a great example. They'll show you Michael Brown with a shirt and tie and his little school picture. They don't show you him beating the Asian store owner, the Korean store owner. They certainly don't show you the other.
Smacking the homeless man around.
Hitting this 100-pound black homeless man around like he was a punching bag. The poor guy couldn't protect himself from a first grader. They won't show you that, but they'll show you this young kid that this white cop shot. They don't tell you that he was trying to take the white cop's gun out of his holster. What was he going to do with it?
Yeah, he gave him a concussion.
That's
the
right.
cop needed stitches
Ruined
on his head.
career, right.
Yeah,
correct.
he ruined this guy's career.
He got what he deserved.
He did get
absolutely.
Yeah, he got what he deserved.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with The Young American.
Attention cigar smokers, or even friends of a cigar smoker. If you're looking to relax with a nice premium cigar, or looking for a great gift for a cigar smoker, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Our friends at twoguyscigars.com have created the Cigar of the Month Club. For just $19.99 per month, you or your friend will receive 4 different premium handmade cigars every month. Shipping and handling is included. Contact twoguyscigars.com, that's the number 2, guyscigars.com, and go to the Cigar of the Month Club. You can stop anytime because there's no contract, but you won't. This is a tremendous deal for our listeners. Go to twoguyscigars.com, that's the number 2, guyscigars.com, and click the Cigar of the Month Club. At the same time, if you want to learn about the cigars you receive each month, you can smoke along with them on their own podcast called The Cigar Authority. Sit back, relax, enjoy a nice premium cigar from our friends at twoguyscigars.com.
And we're back with the Young American Kid Constitution, Joseph Bemister.
All right, guys. So now we're gonna get into how police officers can deal with these things throughout the country, and how different departments deal throughout the world, agencies. Sure. I know down in Brazil, I've seen videos. If you're running from the police and they catch up to you and you don't stop, they're gonna shoot you. They will shoot into your car. They'll shoot, they'll try to stop you with any means. Up here in the United States, they let you keep going until they can take you down with spike strips or, pit maneuver or something. other parts of the world, I do think the police officers, at least in certain parts, are a lot more aggressive.
Right.
And you said you were in Ireland.
Yeah, I was in Ireland. I've been to England. I've been to Germany. And so in Ireland and in England, they don't carry firearms. They basically they have all other equipment, but they're not carrying firearms. They don't carry a sidearm. I'm sure there are some officers or somebody's available with that, but that culture is a lot different. There's a lot less multicultural people in Ireland. England's a different ballgame. I think the police in England will be carrying firearms because of the violence, because of the bombings, because of what's going on there. I spent 18 months in Germany as a military police officer in the army back in the 70s. And the German Polizei, the German police, they certainly carried firearms, and they certainly had dogs, and they had all the equipment you need. And basically, they were more concerned about the GIs, the soldiers that were stationed in and around their towns and cities, because that's mostly where their problems came from. But they were armed. They were very, very professional, very well trained. We worked with them. We used to go shooting with them. It was really a good experience for a young guy like myself, to see these professionals. And, there's a lot more to being a cop than just, carrying a firearm. I mean, you got bad accidents. You have to know first aid. You have to be a social worker. You have to quell disturbances between neighbors. That's what your job is. You're to help people. Peacekeeper. Yeah. And nowadays, though, these body cameras, I think I would not have wanted to have worn a body camera when I first came on, because when I first came on, it was a lot different. It was a different ball game. And now, I mean, there's cameras everywhere. Everyone has a camera. Everybody has a cell phone. Everybody's filming you. Yep. They see a cop. Great example is what happened in Cambridge a week ago. There was a student from Harvard. He happened to be Afro-American. He's naked, middle of the day, and he's creating havoc. And what do you do with a naked man? I mean, you take him into custody. Sean said he knows.
Happy birthday, Sean.
But you take them into custody. But when you have somebody who's completely off their meds or whatever the situation was, mental health issues, a good-sized guy, you cannot handle someone with kid gloves. Why should you get hurt? Because society doesn't want to see you use the tactics that you're trained to use. You take somebody down. Yeah. And when you take them down, if they're fighting you, you try to get their arms and you try to handcuff. Yeah. It's very difficult to handcuff a person. Let me tell you, I don't care if there's 5 cops involved. If somebody doesn't want their arms to come out,
they grab their hands. So they have
to lay
on the ground, grab their hands,
and then they get all that adrenaline running, and they don't want to,
Well, they're on drugs.
Yeah, they're on drugs.
I mean, that's carrying a firearm isn't. I'm not worried about people who aren't are sober people.
Right.
I have no problem. Right. If I pull out my firearm, if someone's threatening me, I think they're going to see that, and if they don't have one, they're going to back away.
Yeah.
Someone's on drugs, they're not going to care.
No.
They don't care. They're not going to, and that's really why I carry a firearm.
Right.
Yeah.
There was one incident where my father was in the store. My brother told me about it, and a gentleman came in, grabbed a pool cue, and the end of the pool cue was one of the balls that they glued on. It was for kids. And he grabbed it. He was like, "Oh, this is a good weapon." And he was, scratching himself, being all weird, going in the back, acting all funny. And eventually, my dad had asked him to leave, and he didn't want to. Went out the car, and they called Salem PD, and he had a bunch of drugs in his car, and he was hyped up. Right. And if he decided to hit somebody with that, and someone decided to hit him again,
sure,
he wouldn't have cared. Whatever he was on, I don't know what it was, but you know what? They're there.
Right. I also think we, again, from I don't know you guys' world at all, but what happened to the good old days? And you probably started when you just beat some kid's ass in a back alley and send them home, and then they learn from it.
Yeah,
I think,
love.
Yeah, right. I mean, tough love, exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, what happened to those days? I mean, I think that's another product of why we're at today, because they know they can fuck you guys over at the police.
Exactly.
Because the minute you lay a hand on them, you guys are screwed.
Exactly.
Well, you know who I feel bad? I feel bad for the teachers of the world. Because,
oh my God.
As you know, I mean, as a teacher, you get zero respect from somebody with an attitude or somebody who might have mental health issues or just be an asshole.
Yeah.
And you know what? Then you get the parents coming in. Where the kid learned it from. The old saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
And that's who I feel bad, because they have no weapons. They have to use, verbal judo. They have to use their minds. And, teachers get thrown around. They get hit. They get spit on.
Yeah.
And, the kid's right back in school 2 days later.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
that's who I really look at. At least as a cop, you're prepared for that. You have weapons and you can
train
go to
for
different
it.
levels.
Yeah.
You know?
Tough love is a tough thing to really regulate because you have people that are going to go too far, and then now you've got a situation on your hands. And if you're, God forbid, you're a school and you appear to have condoned tough love, you knew it was going on, you allow it to happen, and this person goes too far, now you have to deal with a lawsuit. And I would say the same thing goes for police. You end up with a couple of bad apples that end up going too far, and they do have a vendetta or they are racist, and that goes too far. Now you've got the pendulum swinging in the wrong direction for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I can honestly say, and this people can believe it or not, 35 years, 28 in the street, early nights, 4 to 12 in a multicultural city. I've arrested, let's say 200 people my whole career. Southeast Asian, black, Hispanic, all right? And I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, God take my eyes if I'm lying, not once did I ever hear a cop in 28 years say, let's get him, he's black. Let's get him, he's Puerto Rican. Let's get him, he's Dominican. Yeah. Let's get him, he's Asian. And I'm telling you, so I'm not saying there's not racism, there's racism everywhere. I never saw it. It was never used against anybody I ever worked with. It's just how it was. And I'm talking going back from 1980 to 2015. When the news media, who owns a lot of what's going on with these cops being shot right now, if the newscasters and the reporters were being shot at the same rate cops are, they'd be telling you the truth. They wouldn't be showing you a half a clip. They'd be showing you the whole clip, you know?
Other parts of the world, you know, if you do something bad, you're running from the cop, you're going to get your ass beat.
Yeah.
In
Brazil. Mexico.
When I was down in Mexico, just walking through the airport.
Let me tell
Are you serious? Just walking through the airport. You know, they had Swiss-made rifles. They had rifles. They were in camis. Like, they didn't care.
No,
you know, you did something wrong. I actually was taking a video of our friend. She smacked the button, and I had one of the federales come over and take my phone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I had to show my camera roll and things like that. Wow. And, you know, he saw pictures, or she saw pictures of my firearms. Right. And then she got in a conversation with me about that. Not, you know, she didn't ask me, but, you know, they happened to be really nice, but they were strict. And they came over fast. And she, you know, first thing she did was take her stick off her belt.
Right.
Yeah. Right. She, you know, she was expecting if I said no, she was going to smack that phone on my hand.
Absolutely.
And, you know, here in the U.S., people are like, no, that's my phone. You know, okay, well, you have a constitutional right, but, you know, we need to see it come in the background with us. They're like, you know what, fuck you, dude.
Sorry.
I'm going to smack the shit out of you. Break that hand. You know, that's going to be my phone. You can't get that out there.
Well, I could tell you on that subject, I've never been to an airport outside the country, well, except for the Bahamas, but I don't know if you guys remember when that guy shot those people in Fort Lauderdale by the baggage area. Mm-hmm. A couple days later, I flew down to Fort Lauderdale, and there were Army guys or whatever you want to call them National Guard with big fucking weapons. And let me tell you, man, it was quiet. It was calm. It was a different scene with those guys with weapons down there, and it was orderly too. And nobody wanted to look the wrong way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially in our airports, in train stations. It's, you know, I think it's needed. We
have the National Guard as a tool, and I think we should use them more, to be honest with you.
I couldn't agree with you more.
As much as I don't like the federal government, you know, the federal government should be regulated.
There's
you know, we have the National Guard. You know, federal buildings, airports, protests, demonstrations. If you bring the Guard into, you know, if there's an Antifa protest, they're not going to be throwing bottles at them.
No,
you throw a bottle at
serious.
you throw a bottle at somebody in the military. You know what's going to happen? They're going to look at their buddies and say, "Hey, he just threw a bottle at me." You watch out for him. If he steps out of line, you know, if we catch him out of that group, you know, beat the shit out of him.
Well, you know, I grew up in the 60s, and there was a shooting at Kent State University, National Guard, and they shot 4 or 5 students, killed them. You know, and this is how I see it. All these school shootings that are going on, and believe me, they haven't happened around here, but they will.
Sandy Hook was, you know,
Sandy Hook wasn't that far away, but I'll tell you, if you have an armed National Guard officer, soldier,
or resource officer for the school at all.
Well, the thing with the resource officers there's only so much money in the town budget, you know. And I'm lucky in Lowell. We have 12 resource officers, 6 at the high school. We have a huge high school, and 6 spread out. But there's 27 schools. Wow. But I'm telling you, anybody who is hell bent on going into school with a gun and shooting people, you're not going to stop them. I don't care what you do. But if you have somebody there that's got a firearm, that's making a presence, standing there. I don't care how draconian it looks, That's going to prevent somebody from going in.
Other countries, you even look at just the universities. They have armed police officers, security guards right outside the universities, the government buildings, and gated communities.
Yeah. As much as I'm not a huge fan of communism, I did travel to Cuba, and we were traveling with a young lady, and we were walking from the Hotel Nacional through a rough neighborhood to our condo that we were renting, and we passed this group of what you would consider thugs just standing on the corner. They're drinking out of a bottle of rum, and as we walked by, they recognized us as Americans, and they said, "Hey, Americanos," and they offered us the rum, and they're high-fiving us as we're on the way by. So I think it's a little odd. I end up at the condo, and I'm talking to my friend that's there, and I told him the story, and he said, yeah, if one person touches an American that doesn't want to be touched, it's 5 years in prison.
Wow.
Automatic. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. They go right to jail. There's no trial. This is in Cuba.
Wow.
There is almost no crime in Cuba because the consequences are so dire. I'm not saying that we need to become a communist country, but the consequences for your actions need to be more dire here in the United States.
Truth and sentence.
Well,
then that's it.
It's like Singapore. They're a city-state. They control their own, their own entity.
Yep.
You litter there? You hear about the American kid who was 12 years old, spit a piece of gum out in the ground. They caned him. And they had him, not hung, but they had him, demonstrated for like 6 hours after they caned him. A lot of people down there, they never litter because that's going to happen to them.
Exactly.
They don't get into fights.
Right.
I mean, honestly, if there's a fight, okay, if I'm a police officer, different. If I see a fight, I'm like, okay, what happened?
Right.
I might, assault, not battery. But, like, come on. Assault and battery, two different things. But I don't think I would, be mean to the guys. If it was like a mutual fight, that's fine. Okay, sometimes buddies need to do that. Or people who have, beef with each other, say, they need to work it out. And if they need to work it out with a couple fists, it's no big deal with me.
Sure. And I agree. And, I think corporal punishment had its place. Again, people think...
I think they should bring that back in school, to be honest with you.
And I can remember getting, hit on the hands for smoking cigarettes in the 7th grade or skipping school. And his name was Jim Sullivan. He was a Notre Dame graduate, principal of the Moody School. But you know what? There wasn't everybody getting that. There was a small group of us, same kids, getting the same thing. Yeah. It wasn't like they would just go off. And before he did it, this was back in the 60s, he'd call your mother and say, "Hi, I have Michael here. Yeah, he's smoking a cigarette. I'm going to give him some corporal punishment, 3 and 3. He didn't tell her what that was. But I swear, those stings, it was like a cribbage board with a handle. Yeah. I remember the first time I got hit, I thought my whole life had ended. But that was the end of smoking at school. I mean, that's it.
Are you in the 7th grade?
Yeah, 7th grade. Yeah, I know.
Are you kidding me? I won't touch a cigarette at all. You're in the 7th grade. And you're
different times.
Well, we had the same thing. And I went to a private school from the 6th to the 8th grade, and from the 3rd to the 8th grade, and that's just how it was. Your parents signed a waiver. This is a private Christian school. Yeah. If your kid's out of line, we're going to take care of it. Yeah. They didn't call your parents, but if your parents found out that you got your ass kicked at school,
they'd kick your ass again when you got home.
You got it again at home. Oh, yeah. And you know what? They had so few incidents of fighting, stealing, getting out of line in class. You had a couple kids that you could tell were going to be trouble. And they got theirs. They didn't last. They got thrown out of the school. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah. I went to a Catholic school, and I had Sister Nadine always on me.
Sister Nadine.
Yeah, oh yeah. She was.
I know you well enough to know she was on to something there.
Any nun's gonna hit you.
Oh yeah.
You don't mess
with
the
don't
nuns.
care. No.
But I think what the schools are dealing with now. This is a good example, and I was part of this because I'm a therapist and I helped this kid. So the kid gets suspended from school because they have him on video. Walking down the corridor, going into the boys' locker room. He's in there about 22 seconds. He comes out, and he has something he's trying to get under his shirt. Well, what he had was another boy's wallet. Now, did we see the wallet? No. Did his friend show him what he had in the wallet, a couple $100 that he had worked over the weekend helping his father? Yes, he did. They were just acquaintances. So this boy, there's no doubt from looking at this video that he stole this wallet. Even though he didn't see it, he was the only one that went in there. Yep. Well, of course, the parents, the mother who brought him to me for counseling because he had to get some counseling before he went back to school, said to me, she saw the video, they cannot prove he took it. My mother would have said, he took it, he'll never take it again, and that's it. But this is what you're dealing with. You get these these parents who aren't helping their children at all. They think they are.
The not my kid syndrome.
Right, and then they wonder why they're doing what they're doing. They're shooting heroin, they're smoking crack.
If I ever got caught stealing anything from anywhere, shoplifting, my dad would take the doors off the hinges. He would take my phone away.
Right.
I wouldn't have a TV in my room at all.
Right.
And, he would take my phone and say, if you get into an accident, use the kid, you got hit on the car with.
Right.
And that would be it. Right. And, if my mom would probably pay, how much did you steal? I stole $250, Ma. All right, well, guess what? Now you have to pay him back $300 because you stole $250 from him. And that's how it should be.
Yeah. Right. Well, this is why you're the kid constitution, and none of the other kids in your school have a podcast.
When I was very young, I watched my brothers. They got spanked a couple times. And I remember getting spanked maybe 3 or 4 times. And one time in particular, my mom took the wooden spoon out because I stole from my brothers, and I was talking back to her. I didn't need to get a spanking after that one time again because I was like 6 years old. I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing that again. Fuck that. My brothers got smart. And the oldest one stuck a hardcover book in his pants. My mom didn't notice. So when she goes smack him with a bare hand, this is why I got hit with the spoon. She broke her finger. You can imagine how fast she ripped she ripped his pants. It was always bare ass from there.
Oh, man.
You get the wooden spoon. And she'd tap his pants too with the wooden spoon and say, you drop the drawers and smack the shit out of you. And, I didn't need that after that because I was smart enough to look.
Because you knew the consequences.
Exactly.
Like Mike said, there's no consequences now. There's nothing anybody needs to be liable for because everybody says, okay, well, this is society today, and we'll just have a talk with them. Bullshit.
Yeah,
what is a talk? Beating your ass versus a talk? Yeah, okay.
Okay, Mom, I won't do it again. Sorry.
I swear.
Sorry, it's not going to happen.
It's like the I have kids. It's like I'll if you get me a puppy, Dad, or I swear I'll walk it every day. I swear I'll feed it every day.
That.
Yeah, okay.
They all say that.
I said that around Christmas time 2 years ago. I know my mom's taking care of my bulldog.
On a serious note, I find a lot of parents, especially mothers, because they're the ones that usually, have a charge of the child, bring them to the counseling session, and they think they've done something wrong because their kid's smoking weed, or they think they've done something wrong because he's,
acting out in some way.
Right, doing something, shoplifting, stealing, whatever. And you know what? In some cases, they have done something wrong, but most cases they haven't. This is a teenage.
It's a learning experience.
Boy, right. Boys, about 14 years old, they get independent. All of a sudden, they don't want to sit and eat at the table. They don't want to get hugged and kissed, and and then mothers, they lose their ability to nurture. Yep. All of a sudden, they're like, "What? God, I think there's something wrong. He's upstairs. He's playing video games. He wants to eat upstairs." I'm like, there's nothing wrong. He's independent.
Yeah, he's trying to do his own
right.
thing.
But if you say, listen, you can go upstairs and play video games, but we're going to have a half hour, or 20 minutes, or 15 minutes. We're going to have a family meal. This is what you do. And it's a little extra work, but I'll tell you, that's the difference.
Yep.
That's the difference. A little extra work. Mothers think, they blame themselves all day. Parents get separated and divorced. It's the best money you can make. They bring the... Junior's going to be upset. Little Junior Miss is going to be upset because we're getting a divorce. They could give a shit. They don't care as long as they get their phone, their clothes, their money for school, everything else. As long as they're getting love from both sides, they could care less.
And guess what? You can play both sides in that situation.
Absolutely.
I have friends with divorced parents. You know what they say? My mom tells me I can't do this. I go to Dad. Dad tells me I can't do this. I go to Mom.
Right,
I can't. Sometimes I do that. My dad works a lot. Right. Dad, can I go do this? No. Mom, I know you're going to say yes. So yes.
And I bet
that's how he knows that the door comes off the hinges.
That's how I know the door comes off the hinges.
And I bet you sit at dinner with your dad and mom every night and brothers and sisters.
Right. Not every night. My dad works late. Works till 9. He'll get home around like 9:15. But my mom also owns a business too. So right now, a lot of the times I make my own food. Yeah. And I think it's funny because my oldest brother, Ma, where's the food? I'm like, well, how old are you? Where's the food? Yeah. And then he asked me one day, I made pasta. I made a big bowl because my mom told me to. And he was like, well, where's the other stuff? I'm like, beggars can't be choosers here, dude. Like, what do you want?
Butter on and eat it, kid.
Yeah, what do you want me to make, like homemade sausage and sauce? Like, I'm not going to do that for you. And I think, like we just said, when my brothers got spanked, the reason I knew is because my mom didn't take them in the room.
My
mom, she'd be like, hey, everybody, watch this. This is going to be you if you don't do this right.
Cut the chicken's head off and everyone else lays eggs.
Hey, you little fuckers, next time you do this is what's going to happen. And I remember.
Holy moly, I don't want none of that.
No, not at all. And, public hangings back in the Wild West, I think that was the same thing. They saw,
you weren't stealing horses after you saw that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Great show, guys.
We didn't get through all the gun laws, but I think, we kind of shared a whole opinion on that. Same thing.
Certainly.
It's not about what you can get, it's about who can get it.
Yeah.
And, that's the problem now. We can't have mentally ill people getting firearms.
Yeah.
Do I think it's a freedom? Do I think we need to be checked? Absolutely. I don't think it's a violation of the Constitution being checked for mental illness.
Absolutely.
Although it should, in my opinion, I don't think it completely should be done, but if you got history of it, you don't get a firearm. All right, so next week, thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks to everybody who's listening again. Please share this podcast, subscribe too. We're live from the Studio 21 Podcast Café. Next week, we'll be interviewing the libertarian candidate for New Hampshire's governor.
Wow.
Yeah, I reached out to a page on Facebook, and a couple of them happened to message me. And, I'm trying to help and support libertarians all we can. We're a very small party.
How old are you?
18. Just turned 18 April 26th.
You don't want to know what I was doing when I was fucking 18.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, you don't.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you guys
Joe.
for coming
You're the best.
on.
Thanks so much.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.